This is Trisha Berry with our Role Models Matter webinar today as part of our Texas Girls Collaborative Project 2019 webinar series. Glad to have you join us. Just a little bit about the Texas Girls Collaborative Project for those of you who may not be familiar. The Texas Girls Collaborative Project is here to connect and support organizations and individuals and anyone trying to get more girls excited about STEM. And the Million Women Mentors Texas initiative, which is also a part of our webinar series, is here to really support that engagement of STEM mentors and role models, which is definitely the focus of today's webinar. The Texas Girls Collaborative Project has lots of programs and resources available to people across the state. We host regional networking forums or participate in those being hosted in the community. We've got regional Google groups and our leadership teams that are spread out across the state to help us be connected in different spaces and places and supporting the organizations across our state. We also host Texas STEM Connections, which I'll talk about later in the webinar, which is our STEM volunteer matching system. We also disseminate best practices and provide different opportunities for people to learn and gather. And you'll hear more about some of these in the webinar as well. We have our Texas Women and Girls in STEM Summit coming up in December. We have a monthly e-newsletter and this webinar series. And then we also have workshops that are hosted periodically around different curriculum we're helping to disseminate across the state, such as SciGirls or Science Action Club, or this Role Models Matter curriculum that you're going to learn about today. So as far as today's agenda goes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the references that most of this information is pulled from. We're going to talk about the secret sauce for role model success. We'll go through some messages and strategies that we know the research shows work to engage girls and really all students in STEM, and then wrap up with resources and upcoming events to help you in your work. And please use the chat there on the left side of your screen. If you have questions as we're going along, please don't hesitate to type in the chat and we'll address those questions as they come about. So there's a lot of great references and resources out there to help people engage role models, train role models, and be great STEM role models. And much of the information that I'll be sharing with you today comes from these 4 sources. SciGirls is a PBS show and curriculum and content out of Twin Cities Public Television in Minnesota. And they have a wonderful SciGirls Role Models Strategies guide that is wonderful to provide to role models and also to help you understand how to best engage them. Much of their information comes from TechBridge, which is a nonprofit out in California whose focus is on engaging girls in STEM, and they have wonderful role model resources as well, and a whole role model training curriculum on their website, which is another great place to point role models to. The other 2 references that are listed here, Changing the Conversation, Messages for Improving Public Understanding of Engineering, and the Why So Few report from the American Association of University Women, both talk about what are some of the research-based best practices in messaging and engaging girls in STEM, and really can guide the messages and the way that role models interact with girls to really pull them into the excitement that STEM has to offer them down the road. I always like to start with this story. So Amy is a 7th grader, and she was headed to a field trip at Fermilab in Chicago, a national lab, and was going to meet with scientists and engineers on this field trip. And before Amy went on the field trip, before her class went on the field trip, they were all asked to write a description and draw a picture of a scientist. And this is what Amy wrote and what she drew. And this is really that stereotypical image that so many of our kids, as well as the general public, have of what a scientist is all about. Her description is somewhat telling that it's a kind of crazy person talking a lot, always asking these questions and getting new ideas and maybe a little annoying, and definitely has this look of the stereotypical scientist with the lab coat and the glasses and a male and maybe a little older. And this is maybe not the image of what Amy views as herself, seeing herself as this scientist down the road. So they go on the field trip, they meet with all kinds of different scientists and engineers, and the role model experience is deliberately structured to give the students a glimpse into the diversity and excitement of STEM possibilities. And so after the field trip, here's what's written, and here's what she drew. It's a different picture, it's a different description from that role model experience, being able to connect with people who shared a little bit of a different story about their STEM work. And I love this description that scientists are just normal people with a not so normal job, and they have all these hobbies and all these different things that they do that are part of their world, not just STEM. And what's pretty cool about this experience and what's amazing about these role model interactions and the power of engaging role models is that we really can shift the image that students have, girls in particular, about who can be a scientist or engineer. And we could go from this picture you see here of the mad scientist or that stereotypical scientist to pictures like this that really do, we hope, more represent the classroom that Amy was a part of and that field of STEM, of scientists and engineers that are as diverse as the people that we see around us. So let's talk a little bit about what is the secret sauce for success. How do we get our students, get these girls super excited about engineering and science through these role model interactions? Well, it's a little bit of a mix-up of things. We need to have a little bit of passion. We need to make it personal and tell our personal stories. The informal engagement in STEM is really critical, and making it interactive can really mix it all up and allow our students to really see STEM in a different way. So what are some of those key elements? Well, as I mentioned, making it personal. When we tell the stories from our own experiences, when we talk about our own pathways, when we talk about our hobbies and our own excitement about STEM and make it those personal stories, that's what gets kids excited about it. That's what helps them be able to see themselves in those positions. We need to use that kid-friendly language. We need to make sure that we're not throwing in all those STEM acronyms that we know are part of our daily world in STEM spaces. We can use words that aren't so technical for the younger kids and maybe talk about an aerospace engineer instead as an airplane engineer, or a civil engineer instead as a bridge engineer or a road engineer, and make that connection to things that the kids really do understand. And then as they progress into their later years in high school, add in some of that technical terminology, but still frame it in a way that makes sense to them, that connects with the classes that they might be taking, that connects with the things that they see in their everyday world. It's also important for role models to share their academic and career paths. When we talk about what our pathways look like and start to showcase the different ways that you can get to those STEM degrees and the different ways you can get to those STEM careers, again, it starts to make it much more tangible for our students to be able to put themselves in those same positions and to see themselves navigating in a similar way. Sharing our challenges and triumphs are critical. We know that STEM is full of challenges and triumphs, that problem solving is integral to everything that we do as STEM professionals. And students need to understand that having those challenges, persisting, figuring out how to make it work, failing along the way, and then working our way to a different solution is all part of the process. And that's what makes it so fun. We need to talk about that. We need to make sure that students understand that it's all not perfection, that we really do struggle and figure out how to overcome and problem solve our way to those solutions. And then last but not least, really showing how our engineers and scientists can change the world. How we really are, through the STEM work that is happening, making our world a better place. How we're making it healthier and happier and safer. and using those kinds of words to really make connections to things students can see and where STEM is impacting their lives and making their lives better. The research really does show what messaging works when we're talking to girls in particular, but really even the public at large about engineering and science. This was research that was specifically around engineering, but I think you can extrapolate it to other STEM fields as well and describe it as discovery and design and imagination, innovation and contribution. Those were 5 words that really resonated with the public and with high school students in particular, and girls in particular, and really made them want to learn more and grab their attention. Also describing engineers and scientists as creative problem solvers, again, essential to our health, happiness, and safety, and really impacting that world around us in an everyday way. Being able to describe the work that you do as a role model, or encouraging our role models to share their work in these kinds of terms, really can excite students to consider themselves in those positions down the road. And then another just simple word shift, using the word create and not build, again, opened up the world of engineering and science to girls in a different way. Build sounds very structured and very process oriented, whereas create has a lot more open-endedness to it that really brings in that creativity side of what a lot of students want to bring to a career. And so that simple shift of using the word create when talking about the work that you're doing, or when engaging students in a hands-on activity, instead of using the word build, can really make a difference. Additional messaging, really from the research, talks about not reinforcing those images of nerdy and boring. You ask a middle school girl if they want to be seen as nerdy or boring, if they want to be seen as a science geek, the answer is typically no. Of course, we do have students that embrace that geekiness, but they're already part of that STEM mix. They're perhaps already in the club, and so we don't need to try to necessarily engage them in the same way that we might for students who really get turned off by that nerdy and boring language and imagery that we sometimes put out there around STEM. We also need to stop focusing on that math and science as the needed inputs. Really, our math and science is a given for students. They fully understand that math and science is needed in order to be able to pursue these STEM careers. But what they don't understand, and what the public doesn't understand, is what you can do with these degrees, what those outputs are, what those career opportunities are, what you can actually do with these types of jobs. And when our role models can really focus in and share those specific examples about the work that they're doing and the impact they're having, that's what makes the difference. And the math and science will come along because the students know they need to do that. Some other interesting research found that really using images of people and not things grabs, in particular, girls in a very different way and draws them to want to learn more, draws them into the presentation, draws them into the flyer and want to learn more about the event or activity that might be showcased. When we avoid using those stereotypical STEM images of gears and mechanical looking things, we draw in a whole much more diverse pool of students to really think about STEM as something for them. The growth mindset is something that we hear more and more about these days, and how we really need to reinforce that growth mindset and encourage that growth mindset in students. As I mentioned earlier, STEM is all about failure and persistence and that engineering design process where we're learning from the things that don't work in order to make things better. And our students need to learn how to embrace that. They need to be able to learn how to look at a challenge and embrace it and want to learn from it and make it be even something that they look forward to. We also, through this, can highlight the struggle. So if we're doing a hands-on activity with students, if we are having them try something out as an engineering challenge, then we can have them struggle with how to accomplish it and really point out to them and encourage them on how to get through that and how that relates to the struggle and the different types of problems that you may come across as a STEM professional. Again, getting them in that growth mindset so that they will be able to persist through their STEM majors and STEM careers. Making it meaningful is super important for role models. Sometimes role models can be talking about their jobs, talking about the work that they're doing, but if we don't explicitly make those connections to the students' everyday lives, sometimes those connections can be missed. So I love this little picture of the girl working on her gumdrop dome or gumdrop house. And so in this example, being able to talk about the importance of structures and the strength of triangles and pointing out around a classroom or having the students point out around a classroom where they see those structures in place, whether it's the legs of a chair or a table, or maybe it's a playground equipment and the swing set and how the legs on the swing set are pointed outwards so that they are stronger and can hold up those swings. Making those connections to things that students can see in their everyday life and how that relates to an engineer and scientist in their work can go a long way in helping students see where they might fit into the STEM spaces. Connecting to the classes and the careers, connecting to specific STEM disciplines that students are familiar with can all also make a big difference. And this is where role models having a conversation with the organization that is leading an effort or a classroom teacher that they may be visiting the classroom for and understanding what the students are learning and helping making those connections can make a difference. Hands-on activities, if you have the opportunity as a role model to engage students through a hands-on activity, then you're able to really reinforce all of those different things we've been talking about. And hands-on activities are also a great way to help showcase that problem solving and reinforce that growth mindset that we've talked about. Being able to, as a role model, bring in that hands-on activity and do it with the students and use questions to ask them, what are you thinking and how are you doing this and how might this work if you try something different, really can bring STEM into their world in a way that excites them and encourages them to continue to engage and learn. So shared a lot of information quite quickly on how to engage role models and what some of the research and best practices are. I wanted to finish up with some resources to help with role model engagement, to help role models or to help those who are bringing in role models into programs be able to foster this work and to continue to engage kids in the way that we would like them to. So I mentioned hands-on activities. This is one of my favorite resources, howtosmile.org. It's a wonderful resource where you can search for activities. You can search on length of time, on cost of materials, on age, on topic, and there's a wealth of information in here to help you find great hands-on activities that can connect to a role model's job, to the class that's being taught, to the topic at hand, or the length of time that you have available. Texas STEM Connections, as I mentioned previously, is our online portal. It's our STEMvolunteermatch.com. It's our way for organizations and educators or PTAs or programs that are looking for volunteers to be able to go in and request volunteers. And we have STEM professionals who receive the information via newsletter or through the Texas STEM Connection system to learn about these volunteer opportunities and to get connected up with them. It's a great place to put in your requests and try to find those STEM professionals to be able to come into classrooms or out of school programs and have that role model connection that we know makes such a huge difference. And it's free for anyone to use. There is a virtual component to it that does have a cost affiliated with it after a bit, but the in-person requests and in-person connections are all free throughout the state of Texas. This is what the portal looks like, and you can make requests, or volunteers and role models can find these types of requests in the system, that there's in-school, out-of-school, field trips, job shadows, interns, internships and STEM camps and workshop experiences that you can request for in-person opportunities. And again, you can also request virtual visits and get connected with role models here. Or if you're a role model, this is where you can go in and you can find those opportunities. As far as finding STEM role models, another opportunity is to go and find your FabFem. FabFems.org is a role model database where you can find role models based on location or on area of study. You can also find them based on ethnicity or field of work. It's a wonderful resource to go and find different role models that you might want to reach out to. This is also the resource that I go to point students if they're looking for role models to interview or to reach out to or ask questions to. And then last but not least, just a few things coming up. We have a few more webinars coming up this year, and then we'll launch our 2020 monthly webinar series for you soon. Our next one will be on Wednesday, November 6th. It's our preview of the Texas Women and Girls in STEM Summit. We'll have some flash talks of some of our presenters and some highlights to get people excited. And you'll walk away with some tips and tricks and some ideas out of that session, but also hopefully excited about the summit that's coming up in December. And then after our summit on December 10th, we'll have our follow-on webinar with additional flash talks. Our Stand Up for STEM awardees will be presenting, and we'll highlight many of the things that happened during the summit if you're unable to make it or just want to follow up with some of the great stuff you might have missed at the summit. The summit itself is on Friday, December 6th on the UT Austin campus. Information can be found on the Texas Girls Collaborative Project website. Registration will go live this week, and we'll have our presentations available for you to peruse in the coming weeks. Immediately following the summit, we are taking part in the UT STEM Professional Development Day. Texas Girls Collaborative Project with our Women in Engineering program at UT Austin is going to lead a SciGirls workshop. We have 17 different workshops that are going to be offered throughout the day, led by educators from various UT Austin programs and organizations, and you can see the list of them there. That information is also available on the website, and we'll be pushing that information out widely through the Texas Girls Collaborative Project in the coming weeks. So with that, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please throw those in the chat box. Hopefully this gave you some ideas to think about regarding role models, role model engagement, some of those best practices that the research says engages girls in particular, but really all kids in STEM. We look forward to seeing many of you on webinars to come and at our upcoming events. And we'll be posting this webinar online for others to view. So please spread the word once we've posted that on our Texas Girls Collaborative Project social media. So with that, I thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and let's go find some role models and engage them, because we definitely know that role models matter. Thank you.